I had just poured my first cup of coffee when the doorbell chimed, a sound no one should know existed yet. I froze. The mug warmed my palms, steam curling upward, but my stomach dropped cold. I crossed the living room with slow, deliberate steps and tapped the screen on the wall. The camera feed flickered to life. There they were, Marley standing at the edge of the porch like she owned the siding. Her sister leaned against the railing, scrolling through her phone. Two kids chased each other on the lawn, and her mother was already halfway up the walkway with a box in her arms. Behind them, a U-Haul idled in the driveway. "We're outside. Can you unlock the door?" Marley's voice rang through the intercom, chipper like we had planned this together. But we hadn't. I hadn't told her the address. I hadn't told anyone but my lawyer and the real estate agent. I signed the closing papers 2 weeks ago and moved in quietly last Friday. No housewarming, no announcement, just silence and clean walls and space that was finally mine. And yet there they stood. The boxes weren't decorative. I could see one labeled Ellie School Supplies. Another said guest bedding. No one looked confused. No one hesitated. I didn't move. My finger hovered over the speaker button, then dropped. They weren't visiting. They were arriving. I backed away from the screen, each step quieter than the last. In the kitchen, my coffee had gone lukewarm. I dumped it and started a fresh pot, not out of routine but control. A small, familiar ritual to hold on to while the rest of the morning spun off balance. The doorbell rang again, then Marley's voice, softer, more pointed. "Come on, Diane. We told the kids this was it. Don't make this difficult." I looked around the living room, my furniture, my boxes still half unpacked, my name on the deed. And then I walked to the front door, checked the deadbolt, and slid the chain into place. I don't remember unlocking the door. At some point between the second pot of coffee and the third ring of the bell, I must have opened it. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I didn't believe what I saw through the screen. But they came in like they'd done it before, like this wasn't new. Boxes thumped against the hardwood. Marley kicked off her shoes and made a beeline for the hallway, calling out room names like she was narrating an open house. "This one's perfect for Ellie," she said, popping open the door to my office. "Natural light, plenty of floor space, and we'll need blackout curtains for the nursery." Nursery. I stepped into the hall just in time to watch her sister unfolding a measuring tape against my bedroom door frame. Marley turned toward her. "The master is Mom's for now. Once we remodel the garage, she'll have the back suite. It's quieter anyway." I don't remember raising my voice. I didn't need to. "What are you doing?" I asked. Marley blinked like she was startled by my presence, like she hadn't known I was there. Then she smiled in that practiced, condescending way she reserved for people she thought were overreacting. "Diane," she said slowly, "we talked about this." "No," I said. "You talked, and not with me." She crossed her arms, shifting her weight to one hip. "This is a 3-bedroom, and you're one person. We're family. Family shares." I looked past her at my nightstand, my lamp, the drawer that still held my husband's watch, everything still in its place for now. The front door opened again, and Elijah stepped in. "Hey," he said, brushing a leaf off his jacket. "Let's not make this awkward, Mom." He didn't ask how I was, didn't glance around, just stood there with the air of someone who'd arrived exactly on time for something he didn't plan. I didn't answer him. I just walked into my bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled out the lockbox from the back corner. The lockbox was heavier than I remembered. Inside, every signed document, every receipt, every forgotten promise. I sat on the edge of the bed, flipping through manila folders like they were chapters in a story no one but me ever bothered to read. Co-signer agreement 2013. First lease for Elijah and Marley's apartment. They were just married. Their credit was bad and Marley cried when they got approved. She hugged me like it meant something permanent. Then the check stubs from 2016. $2,000 for the down payment on their Subaru. I remember Marley saying, "We'll pay it back within the year." She never brought it up again. And the loan payoff, $7,400. Marley's bakery had failed within 8 months. She blamed the location, the traffic, the rent. Not once did she mention the part where she opened a business without a contingency plan and used my name on the loan application. Elijah said it would crush her to file for bankruptcy. I wrote the check the next morning. My husband Edwin was alive then. He told me over dinner, "We help while we're here, that's the point." He meant it. We weren't wealthy, but we could float others when they sank. But Edwin had also said something else the day before he passed, when we were sitting in that same kitchen drinking coffee like we always did. Don't let them turn your kindness into obligation. I think about that now, watching Marley's children climb on my couch with their shoes on, her sister asking if there's Wi-Fi, Elijah leaning against the counter scrolling his phone like he hasn't lived through every inch of this history. I shut the lockbox and slide it under the bed. By the time I step out into the hallway, Marley has opened my linen closet and is sorting towels into piles. "For the kids' bathroom," she says without looking at me. "We'll need extras." I nod, then step past her to the front door. I open it slowly, step outside, and walk toward the side gate where the spare key is still hidden under the planter. I found the key exactly where I left it, under the heavy ceramic planter by the gate, a just-in-case habit from the old house, from the old version of me. I took it inside, dropped it into the trash, and stood there until the silence wrapped around me tight enough to squeeze the air from my lungs. That night, I changed the locks. I didn't wait until morning. I didn't call Elijah. I didn't ask permission. I called the locksmith at 7:22 p.m., and by 8:15, every door in the house clicked shut with a different sound. New tumblers, new codes, new rules. No one asked if I was okay. No one noticed when I didn't come back out to say goodnight. The next morning, my phone buzzed just after 10 o'clock. A text from Ruth, the neighbor across the street. "Hey, your daughter-in-law's here with a locksmith. Thought you should know." I didn't respond. I just opened the app on my phone and pulled up the camera feed. The footage rolled clear as glass. Marley stood at my front door holding a grocery bag. Her smile faltered for half a second before she turned to the man beside her and handed him a piece of paper. "Try this code," she said. "She probably changed it. She does that sometimes." The locksmith hesitated. "Ma'am, I'll need property confirmation." Marley waved toward the house like it was already hers. "My mother-in-law lives here. She's just being difficult. She'll cave. She always does." I paused the video and stared at her face. Not angry, not scared, just confident, because I always do. I watched the man shake his head and walk away. Marley made a quick call, said something I couldn't hear, then picked up the grocery bag, apple juice, paper towels, and a pack of crayons sticking out, and set it on the porch like it was a delivery I'd forgotten I ordered. Then she got in her car, buckled her kids, and drove off like nothing had happened. That evening, I received a voicemail from Elijah. I pressed play and listened to his voice crackle through the speaker. The voicemail was short. Elijah didn't yell. He didn't apologize either. "Hey, Mom, not sure what's going on, but the kids were really confused. Marley says you've been distant lately. Can we talk soon? You know, she just wants everyone settled. Call me, okay?" I didn't call. That night, I lay in bed with the phone on my chest, staring at the ceiling. My body felt like it had been carrying weight in invisible places. Not just this week, for years. Around midnight, another ping. A message from Leah, Elijah's cousin, my niece by marriage. I think they meant to leave me out of this thread. Thought you should see. Attached a screenshot. The group chat had 3 names I recognized right away. Marley, her mother, Elijah. Marley's mom. "Give her a day or two, she'll break." Marley. "She has nowhere else to go. She always folds when she gets tired." Elijah. "Let her cool off, she'll come around." My hands didn't shake. My face didn't burn. Not this time. I stared at my son's name, at the words he typed, as if I were some stubborn wall to be waited out. Like I hadn't stood in courtrooms and hospital rooms for him. Like I hadn't picked up every piece after every storm he created. I pressed reply. "They won't be coming back." And then I sent it. I didn't explain. I didn't elaborate. The next morning, the doorbell rang again. I didn't answer it. An hour after that, an envelope slid under my front door. No name on the outside, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside was a handwritten letter from Marley, 5 pages long. I didn't open it right away. I took it to the kitchen, placed it on the table, and went to put on a pot of coffee. I didn't read the letter. I dropped it in the file folder labeled Marley Legal and called my lawyer. By noon, I'd filed the no-contact warning and paid for a courier to deliver a certified letter to their address. No dramatics, no confrontation, just language they couldn't misinterpret. The next step was cameras, not just the doorbell anymore. Full perimeter, motion-activated, cloud-based. My lawyer had suggested it weeks ago when I first mentioned the spare key. "Document everything," she said, "and don't talk to them directly again." By sunset, there were signs on both gates. "No trespassing by order of law." The next morning, Elijah finally called. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I needed to hear what he'd sound like now that the door was really closed. "Mom," he said, "what are you doing?" "I'm protecting my property." "You're being cold," he said. "You've never been like this." I said nothing. "We have kids," he went on, "and you lived with us for free for over a year." That made me laugh. Not loud, just one short breath through my nose. "You want to go over numbers?" I asked, calm as a ledger sheet. I walked into the office and pulled out the receipts. "You charged me $700 a month to live in your guest room. I paid it every month. I also paid the gas bill for 5 of those months and bought groceries almost weekly." "That's not," he started, but I kept going. "I also gave you the down payment for that house, $12,000. You said you'd pay it back." Silence. I kept my voice even. "I don't need the money. I need you to stop rewriting the truth." The line went quiet. Then Marley's voice jumped in on speaker. "You're unbelievable. After everything we've done for you." I hung up. No rage, no shaking hands, just a finished call. I opened the folder, slipped the screenshot of the group chat inside, and added the new delivery confirmation from the sheriff's office. At the bottom of the page, I wrote the date. Then I turned to the next blank sheet, already knowing what it would hold. The invitation came through Elijah's voice, softer than usual, like he was trying not to spook me. "We'd just like to talk things through, Mom. One dinner, that's all." I agreed, not because I thought anything would change, but because I wanted to see, face to face, just how far they were willing to go. When I arrived, the table was already set. Candlelight, linen napkins, wine poured. Marley stood behind a chair like a hostess in her own restaurant, her smile tight but practiced. On the placemat in front of me were 5 printed listings. "We found a 5-bedroom just 10 minutes from the school," she said. "You'll love it. There's even a garden. Good neighborhood," Elijah added, sitting beside her. "Safe for the kids, and the payments aren't bad if we all pitch in." I didn't speak. "You sell your place," he continued. "It's too small for all of us anyway. This was always temporary, right?" I looked down at the plate in front of me. Roast chicken, steamed vegetables, a roll with a curl of butter. Nothing on the plate looked like food to me. I reached into my purse and pulled out a crisp document, unfolding it slowly. "This house," I said, placing the document firmly on top of their listings, "is not a discussion." Marley frowned. "You can't be serious." "I'm entirely serious." Elijah leaned forward. "Mom, we're trying to make this work. Be reasonable." I tapped the bold header across the top of the page. "This property is legally recorded in my name. It's my sole asset. No one can force me to do anything with it. And if I ever sell, it'll be because I want to, not to buy someone else a bigger house." They stared at the paper like it had slapped them. They stared at the paper like it had slapped them. "I thought we were family," Marley said, her voice tightening. "I thought this was about moving forward." I finally picked up my fork, not to eat, just to nudge the napkin aside. "You came here to make a deal," I said calmly. "But I'm not here to bargain. There's nothing on this table I want." Their silence said everything. And when I stood to leave, I left their glossy listings exactly where they belonged, untouched, like the dinner I never intended to stay for. It was Ruth again who told me. "Marley posted something. You might want to look." I didn't want to, but I did. There it was on her public page, right under a picture of her kids sitting on my porch swing. "Moving in soon, feeling blessed to grow our family." Sometimes God opens doors where others slam them shut. The comments came fast. "So happy for you. Your mother-in-law is lucky to have you. Family sticking together. That's what matters." And then the messages started pouring into my phone. From old neighbors, from church friends, even a woman I hadn't spoken to since college. "Is it true you're turning them away?" "I know it's hard, but those children need space. Don't let bitterness ruin what God has built." I didn't respond. I didn't explain. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, took my keychain off the hook, and placed it on the counter. One house key, nothing else. I snapped a photo. No caption, just the image. I posted it to my own page, quiet and deliberate. The comment section filled slowly with fewer hearts and prayers, but more questions. "Just one key, that house yours? What's going on?" I didn't answer. I brewed another cup of coffee and let the storm swell around someone else for a change. By nightfall, Marley had added a new post. "Sometimes the people closest to you choose pride over peace, but we're still praying. We still believe." Under it, her kids again, this time sitting on suitcases in what looked like a hotel room. The captions played their role well. Sympathy poured in like rain. I stared at her words on my screen, then turned it face down on the table. That night, I started deleting people quietly without notice, unfriending those who asked for answers without ever offering understanding. In the morning, I opened the file folder again and added a new page. Printed screenshots, names, dates, Patterns. By the time I finished, the doorbell was ringing. I saw the SUV from the corner of the street before I pulled into my driveway. It was parked directly in front of my house, hazard lights blinking, rear doors open. Toys were already scattered on the lawn. One of the kids held a juice box. The other was banging on my front door like it was his own. Marley stood with a set of keys in hand, trying each one. Elijah was on his phone, pacing near the mailbox like he had somewhere better to be. I stayed in my car. I didn't honk. I didn't get out. I just called the police, gave my name, my address, and said calmly, "They've been warned. I need someone here." It took less than 8 minutes. By then, a few neighbors had started watching. Curtains shifted. A garage door creaked halfway open, then paused. I watched from the rearview mirror as the officer stepped out of the patrol car, one hand on his belt, the other waving gently as he approached Elijah. I rolled down my window only after the officer had spoken to both of them. "Ma'am," he said, walking up to me, "they claimed they were invited. Do you want to confirm that's not true?" I stepped out slow and steady and nodded. "They are not welcome, and they knew that." Marley's voice cracked behind me. "You're really doing this in front of the children?" "I'm enforcing a legal boundary," I replied, still looking at the officer. "That's what this is." Elijah raised his voice then, loud enough for every neighbor to hear. "You've lost your mind, Mom. What happened to you?" I didn't answer him. The officer asked if I wanted them trespassed formally. I said yes. He issued the warning while Marley cried, and Elijah slammed the SUV door hard enough to shake the mirror on my front porch. The kids were silent now, wide-eyed and confused. I felt it in my chest, but I didn't waver. When they pulled away, the patrol car stayed until they turned the corner. I thanked the officer, walked inside, and locked the door behind me. The Ferrale sign went up a week later. 2 days after that, my agent called with a cash offer, clean, quiet, over-asking. I didn't even blink. I accepted before she finished the sentence. Packing didn't take long. I hadn't unpacked much to begin with. I kept what mattered: Edwin's watch, my coffee mug, the lockbox of documents. The rest I sold or donated. I wasn't sentimental anymore. Not about furniture, not about curtains, and certainly not about shared memories. By the end of the month, I was gone. I moved inland about 130 May East, a small town with 2 diners, 1 hardware store, and not a single person who'd ever heard the name Marley. I rented a modest studio above a bakery that smelled like cinnamon every morning. The building came with a narrow stretch of soil out back, barely wide enough for tomatoes and herbs, but it was mine. Every morning I tend that garden like a ritual. Gloves on, knees in the dirt, sun on my neck. It's quiet work, honest. Sometimes my phone buzzes, voicemails from Elijah, a few texts from people who still think family means unspoken loyalty. I don't block them. I just don't answer. I choose what gets in now. That's the whole difference. One morning at the market, the woman behind me in line asked if I'd just moved to town. I nodded and smiled. "Starting over?" she asked. I thought about that for a second. Then I shook my head. "Not starting over, just starting mine." She smiled back, not pushing, and handed me a paper bag when I dropped mine. Later that night, I stood in my tiny kitchen, placing my single house key on the counter beside my cutting board. No copies, no spares, no one asking for it but me. Outside the window, Basil and Thyme leaned toward the porch light. A breeze moved through the tomato vines. I opened the screen door, stepped out barefoot, and watered the roots myself.